Australia's immigration minister is possibly thinking of denying Chris Brown a visa so he would be unable to perform in a concert there. Now, one of the reasons why he's doing this is because of what he did back in 2009, where he beat and strangled his then girlfriend, Rihanna. Now, he received 5 years of probation, 180 days of community service, and an anti-domestic violence program for beating up Rihanna. But the minister says that if Chris Brown wants to perform in Australia, he has to prove that his character is worthy of entering the country. Immigration ministers can do that in the country, and so it's very, very interesting to see whether or not he holds his promise and holds Chris Brown accountable for what he did years ago. Now, people are also defacing some Chris Brown posters that are strewn across the country. Let's give you an example. One of them is a picture of Chris Brown, and someone posted "I beat women" on it. One person on Twitter actually loves this and says, "Whoever's doing this to the Chris Brown posters in Melbourne is a champion. Nice work." Now, Get Up is a campaign that's been speaking out against Chris Brown, and here's what they said. "If we stand by and do nothing while he performs around the country, even if we don't have the faintest interest in Brown's career or pop music in general, we are implicitly sending the message that if you brutally beat a woman, in a short amount of time, you will be forgiven or even celebrated." Now, Chris Brown doesn't deny that what he did was absolutely wrong. He took to Twitter to respond to some of the critics, and here's what he had to say. "My life mistakes should be a wake-up call for everyone, showing the world that mistakes don't define you, trying to prevent spousal abuse. I would be more than grateful to come to Australia to raise awareness about domestic violence. I'm not the pink elephant in the room anymore." Now, just to respond to Chris Brown, I will give him credit for the way he handled this, because in the past, he's defiant, he's angry, he's defensive, and it seems like he's grown up a little bit. He's a little more mature. However, after the incident with Rihanna, there were numerous cases where he was accused of assault and being violent, and so he does need to prove that he's changed. I mean, I don't blame the immigration minister for doing this, and hopefully Chris Brown has turned a new leaf. He just needs to prove it. I want to know what you guys think about this. Alex, make your point.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Get Up, and I understand why they wouldn't want him in their country given his history, and I don't think he's proven himself. That is just it. You know, his stardom aside, I wouldn't want someone in our country that had that history. And oh, how convenient that all of a sudden he's raising awareness about domestic violence because he wants something. But like you said, Anna, up until this point, he's still shown so many signs of being violent.
Yeah, absolutely. Karamo, make your point.
I disagree, because you first of all are talking about a young man who's in a business where people profit off of his chaos. He's in a situation where people want to see him do bad. Also, you can't define someone for one mistake. Think about something you did at 22 or 23, and if you were to always be defined by that one moment. He's moved on. Rihanna has moved on. She's forgiven him. He's growing up as a person. We have to get to a place where we say, you know what? Let's bygones be bygones.
But how do you respond to other instances involving him assaulting people at clubs and things like that? I mean, I agree with you that sometimes we make really terrible mistakes when we're young, and we learn from those mistakes and we move on. But I'm a little dubious as to whether or not he's moved on.
Well, we're talking about beating up women, and we're talking about having altercations with aggressive fans who, as we all know, can be super aggressive and do things to you to prompt you to act a certain way. He's taking anger classes. He's making the right steps. He's a father now. I think that we don't want to automatically promote domestic violence or have anyone believe that this is what you should do against women, because we all know that's wrong. But again, just because he had an altercation in a club, think about all the other rock stars, superstars who have had those situations. Athletes. We understand what fame can do to you. He has to move on at some point. And the fact of the matter is that this situation is bringing up this conversation constantly, anytime he goes somewhere. So what he did, though it was wrong, is bringing awareness in a way that we've never seen when it comes to domestic violence. Because every time he walks in a room, someone says, let's bring up Rihanna. Let's bring up Rihanna, even though Rihanna has requested, stop bringing up the situation.
Interesting. All right, well, here's the question for the story, personal question. Is there something that you've done in your past that keeps coming back to haunt you? Alex?
This is not very comparable to the Chris Brown situation, but on a much lighter note, about 6 years ago, I modeled for Buck Hunter.
Okay.
If you don't know what Buck Hunter
Really?
is, it is a game that you find in arcades and bars, and it's totally not inappropriate, but very, very quirky. And And to this day, they're still around. So I'll have friends that are like in a small town in Wisconsin. That's a state that I'm from. They'll totally send me pictures next to me, like blowing a kiss in a little two-piece camo outfit. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I did that 6 years ago, like before I had a career or anything. So it's just kind of a funny thing that keeps popping up.
Please, someone in the control room find that photo right now. Please, someone. Can we get that?
Yeah, we're gonna victimize
It
you.
wouldn't be
Exactly.
the first time that it popped up on a show either.
Exactly.
So funny. Karamo, what about you?
Something I've done that I regret or that pops back up.
Yeah.
The real world. Like
okay, all
every
right.
goddamn moment, people are like, "Oh, do you still do this or you do that?" I'm like, "Give me a break." I was 22 years old. That's what I can feel
I was
for
22 at the time
See,
too.
so you
It all happens when you're in
Yeah,
your low
you're 22,
20s,
so
right?
I feel Chris's pain. Like,
Yeah, I
let's
hear
move
you.
on.
I don't know if there's anything that haunts me per se. I mean, I started doing the show when I was like 20, so I said a lot of dumb things that sometimes will come back up, and I just kind of brush it off because, you know, you've grown and you've moved on, just like Chris Brown possibly.
Possibly.
But I would say I had a fan meetup in Chicago very recently, and one of the fans came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of yours. I still watch the show every day, but my girlfriend stopped watching because of the way that you covered this one story." And it was a story involving a woman who had like surgical procedures done to modify her ears so she looked like an elf. And when we covered that story, we were unbearably cruel to her, you know? And it's one of those lapses in judgment where you let your own biases and your own judgment kind of take over the way you cover the story. And so his girlfriend used to be a fan and now she's not a fan anymore. And I'm really sorry. Like, that was a while ago, and I really do regret the way that I covered that. And it doesn't come up too often, but it comes up enough for me to realize what my mistake was. So yes, you gotta be careful with what you say and what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us what you guys have done in the past that keeps coming back to haunt you. We do want to hear from you, and we do want to know what you've been up to. So comment in the section below, and we'll see you soon.